Niagara Falls is one of North America's bucket list attractions, but should you visit the American or the Canadian side? Or have you ever wondered if it's worth visiting both sides? Well, there's been a cross-border debate for decades about which country offers the best views of the falls. In this video, we explore both the American and Canadian sides of Niagara Falls. After visiting both, there's a lot more to consider than I thought. Without a doubt, the primary draw of Niagara Falls is the enchanting sight of these mighty waterfalls. And it's no contest. The best view of the falls is from the Canadian side. Here you'll find panoramic, expansive views. And the entire boardwalk along the gorge lets you see all three waterfalls in a 360-degree spectacle. Crossing over to the American side, I think everyone will agree with me that the views of the falls themselves aren't as striking over here, but what it does offer is a much more immersive experience. Here you can get closer to the falls than you ever thought possible. Various trails, boardwalks, and vantage points bring you within an arm's reach of these cascading waters. For instance, at Goat Island and Three Sisters Island, you'll stand right on the brink of the falls where it feels like you can almost reach out and touch the water. I will say that I almost enjoyed the view from the American side better, for a couple of reasons. I feel like there was so much more room to spread out between all the different trails and viewpoints, and when you look out onto the gorge, not only do you see the water and the falls, but you also get the skyline of all the Canadian skyscraper hotels and casinos, which I feel like added some really interesting depth to the landscape. On the American side, Niagara Falls is a state park. In fact, it was actually America's very first state park. So the whole area that surrounds the falls is a natural park-like setting. They've done a really great job of preserving the natural elements here. So in this regard, I think it actually gets a slight edge. And compared to its Canadian counterpart, the American side of the falls seems to be generally less crowded. In contrast, the Canadian side of Niagara Falls is more commercialized, almost bordering on a theme park atmosphere. There's an array of touristy attractions, and the skyline is dominated by hotels offering incredible views of the falls, which you don't actually get on the American side. So if you do want a room with the best views in town, try the Marriott Fallsview Hotel. This is where we stayed for part of our trip, and fair warning, it is not cheap to get a Fallsview room. We paid almost $600 a night for this room, but the view was pretty insane. Especially at night when the falls are all lit up, there's fireworks going off, and sunrise was pretty incredible. As far as attractions that are worth doing, we'll start with the Maid of the Mist, which is the best way to get an up-close and immersive experience with the falls. Honestly, no trip to Niagara Falls is complete without doing this tour. So we donned our super stylish ponchos and boarded the boat that would take us to the basin of the falls.
We're going in.
On a sunny day, it was a breathtaking view. And once you actually get to the base, not only does it get pretty intense from the thundering cascades and the sheer power of the water, if you're anywhere along the edge of the boat, you will get absolutely drenched. Almost like being baptized by Mother Nature herself. And as you can witness here, everything was so wet. I had no idea what I was taking pictures of, if I was even taking video or not, but it was all fun. All you heard the whole boat ride was just giggles and laughter. It was a great time. Worth noting, the boat on the Canadian side is called the Hornblower. It's the exact same experience, it's just a different name. I also thought it was interesting that the American boats are these all-new electric boats, and we noticed the Canadian boats were all diesel. My favorite attraction, though, was the Cave of the Winds tour. Here you descend 175 feet, or 53 meters, to the base of Bridal Veil Falls.
I appreciate the American engineers building taller tunnels than the Canadian counterparts.
He doesn't have to duck on this one.
Once again, we suited up in our fashionable rain ponchos.
Ready to get soaked. Now we're ready.
And then you walk along these wooden walkways and platforms that are built right into the gorge. And while we were fully aware the signs mentioned we were going to get wet, that was probably the understatement of the year. We got absolutely soaked. Again, it was the best though. As you traverse each platform, you get closer and closer to the water, and it's rushing past you and underneath your feet. There's really no way to avoid getting absolutely soaked. It all culminates with the end boss platform being the famed hurricane deck, where you're fully engulfed in the falls. On the Canadian side, there's a similar experience called Journey Behind the Falls. An elevator takes you 125 feet down, leading to century-old tunnels that bring you right to the base of the Horseshoe Falls. So here you can also witness the sheer power of the water from 2 different observation decks. While it wasn't as thrilling as Cave of the Winds, it's still an excellent choice if you prefer to stay a little more on the dry side and still savor the views. I'll quickly mention Clifton Hill, which might be considered the most tacky street in Canada. It's regarded as Niagara Falls' entertainment district, and it's almost like walking through a mini Times Square or Coney Island, maybe even a dystopian Disneyland. Anyway, it's packed with all the touristy stuff to do, like wax museums, arcades, haunted houses, mini golf, and the Niagara Sky Wheel, as well as restaurants and some breweries. And on the Canadian side, there are lots more attractions. There's a zip line, the Skylon Observation Tower with a restaurant on top, a butterfly sanctuary, the Whirlpool jet boats, the Whirlpool aero cars, all kinds of stuff to do. But we actually chose to spend a day visiting the local area wineries instead. Just 20 or 25 minutes outside of Niagara Falls, you'll find the Niagara Wine Region, which is a beautiful area to spend an entire day or even just a few hours touring the different wineries. Anchored by the charming boutique town called Niagara-on-the-Lake, which is often named Canada's prettiest town, this region is renowned for producing high-quality ice wines. This is because it's a cooler climate, which creates ideal conditions for this sweet specialty. If you visit the area, you can expect to visit picturesque vineyards and wineries where you'll have the opportunity to taste a variety of wines, anything from Riesling and Chardonnay to red wines and the famous ice wine. I highly recommend taking a scenic drive out to the area, or you can also book one of the many wine tours available. Most of the wineries offer tasting flights where you can choose 3 or 4 wines and sip them at your leisure. If you only have time to visit 1 or 2 wineries, these were my top 3 favorites. Peller Estates, and try to get a seat at a table outside for the most incredible views. Then we have Wayne Gretzky Estates. If you're a hockey fan, this winery was a destination in itself. There was everything going on here. What I really loved was that you can mix and match your tastings. So you can try wine, whiskey, and the cream liqueurs all in the same tasting flight. And finally, Trius Winery. They had the most unique tasting experience I've ever done.
We are doing a black glass wine tasting challenge. I've never done anything like this before. They bring you 3 wines in black wine glasses. You don't have any idea whether it's a red, a white, sparkling, anything like that. You have to guess based on the smells, the tasting notes, stuff like that. So we'll see how it goes.
So in the end, which side is better, or which side would you enjoy more? First, a reminder, you will need a passport to cross the border between the US and Canada. Secondly, if you only have 1 day in the area, there's actually a tour that will take you to both sides so that you can get the full experience. But if you do have a couple of days or more, I recommend visiting both sides. Start with the Canadian side for that awe-inspiring moment when you first lay eyes on the falls. Then venture over to the American side where you can get a lot closer to the falls. After exploring the Canadian views and tourist attractions, the American side feels more like a backstage look at the falls. So this is the order I would recommend. They're different, but altogether they create a really well-rounded Niagara Falls experience. So now the question is, which side do you think is the best? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Check the video description for the tours that I mentioned earlier in the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.